The courtroom was packed. Old wooden benches creaked under the weight of curious onlookers, porters and board officials. The buzz of voices echoed off the high ceilings. A fan turned slowly above, making a dull, lazy sound. At the front, the judge sat waiting, flipping through some papers. The prosecutor leaned back in his chair, smirking. Even the defense attorney looked tired, almost uninterested. They were all waiting for one person, and then the door opened. A woman walked in. She was small in height, quiet in her steps, and dressed in a plain gray hoodie and black pants. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, nothing fancy. Her hands were at her sides, calm, steady. Her eyes didn't search the room. They looked straight ahead. People turned to look at her. Some whispered, "That's her. She doesn't look like much." "She's the one on trial?" A man in the back shook his head and chuckled. "She looks like a college dropout. What could she have done?" No one stood for her. No one greeted her. She had no lawyer walking beside her, no assistant, no family. She walked in alone and sat at the defendant's table. Lowering herself gently into the chair like someone used to being silent, the jury barely looked up. One juror, a young man with earphones still in his lap, whispered to another, "This'll be over in a day." The woman didn't react. She didn't blink. She folded her hands and looked ahead. The judge cleared his throat. "Miss Jordan, are you ready to proceed?" She nodded once. That was all. The prosecutor stood up. A tall man in a sharp suit. His voice was loud, confident, practiced. "Your Honor, this is a simple case. Miss Jordan is accused of withholding critical information, interfering with federal operations, and falsifying her identity. We have witnesses. We have evidence. What we don't have," he said, looking at her with a smirk, "is any reason to believe this woman is who she says she is." The crowd murmured again. The judge hit the gavel. Order in the court. The woman still said nothing. The prosecutor continued. She refused to explain her background. She gave no real name for weeks. She only showed up with this hoodie and an ID that leads nowhere. The judge turned to her. "Miss Jordan, do you wish to make a statement?" She looked up at him. Calm, quiet, not scared, not angry, just steady. "No, Your Honor." The judge nodded slowly. "Very well." A woman in the front row of the gallery leaned toward a man next to her and whispered, "Why doesn't she defend herself?" The man shrugged. "Maybe she can't." 5 years earlier, a flash somewhere far away. A war zone, explosions, sand, gunfire. The same woman, no hoodie, but in black tactical uniform, stands tall among a group of soldiers. She speaks into a radio. Target neutralized. Civilians evacuated. We're done here. A young Marine, wounded and shaken, looks up at her and says, "Ma'am, what are you?" She helps him stand. "Just someone who does her job." And the memory fades. Back to the courtroom, the prosecutor brought in the first witness. A man in a suit, glasses, nervous fingers. "State your name," the prosecutor said. "Dr. Alan Reeves, Department of Defense." "Dr. Reeves, did this woman ever work for your department?"
"No, we couldn't find any employment records."
"Nothing in our files. And yet, she had access to secure locations, correct?" "Yes, but which means she may have been working under false identity." "Yes, thank you." He sat down. No one in the courtroom looked surprised, except for one person, an older man in the last row, wearing a simple janitor's outfit. He stared at the woman, his eyes squinting, as if trying to remember something. Then his face changed, sat up straighter. He whispered to himself, "That's her." Meanwhile, the judge adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. "Miss Jordan, your record is blank. No birth certificate. No high school. No tax records. Where did you come from?" The woman didn't blink. "I was born in the U.S., sir. Just lived in shadows. Excuse me. I served my country without the spotlight. That's all." More whispers filled the room. The judge raised his hand. "Enough." Then his eyes narrowed. "What is that around your neck?" The woman looked confused, then slowly reached into her hoodie. A small pendant hung on a thin chain. Not flashy, but strange. It was shaped like an eagle, with one wing made of glass and the other of steel. At its center, a tiny black star. The judge frowned. The prosecutor walked over. "May I?" he asked. She looked at him for a long moment, then lifted the necklace off and handed it over. The courtroom went quiet. The judge took the pendant and held it up. "I've seen this before," he whispered. The prosecutor stepped back. The janitor in the back of the room suddenly stood up. "I know who she is." Hey, he said loudly. Everyone turned. "I saw that medal once, long ago, at a top-secret ceremony at Fort Ellis. Only the highest officers got it." The judge turned pale. "Court is in recess," he said quickly. "Now," gavel slammed. The woman stood slowly. Everyone stared. She turned to the janitor and gave a small nod. The courtroom doors closed with a deep, echoing sound. The crowd began to leave slowly, whispering among themselves. No one was laughing anymore. The woman in the hoodie had become more than just a mystery. She had become a question no one could answer. The janitor stood near the back wall, his hands shaking slightly. A young reporter approached him. "Sir, what do you mean you know her?" He looked around, hesitant, then said, "I saw that medal once. Years ago, only 5 people ever got it. None of them were known by their real names." The reporter blinked, gave out those medals. The janitor answered in a low voice, "The Pentagon." Inside the judge's chambers, the judge sat in silence, staring at the strange medal on his desk. The small black star in the center seemed to glow faintly under the light. He reached for the phone. "Get me the Department of Defense. Top clearance." On the other side of the room, the woman in the hoodie, still calm, stood beside 2 security officers. She didn't say a word. She didn't look worried. She looked like someone who had already been through worse. The judge glanced up at her. "This isn't a piece of jewelry. It's military. But not any regular medal. It's not in any database." She nodded once. "It's not meant to be." He leaned forward. "Are you going to keep hiding who you are?" "No, sir. I'm just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Her eyes didn't blink. For someone to tell the truth. Across town, a military base. A red phone rang inside a small office marked classified, level 6 access only. A decorated Admiral, gray hair, deep lines across his forehead, picked it up. He listened. Didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, "Where is she now?" The voice on the other end replied, "Federal courtroom. They don't know who she is." The Admiral stood up slowly. "I told them this would happen one day." He walked to a hidden safe in the wall, opened it, and pulled out a small folder. The top of the folder read, "Operation Black Veil Commander." Redacted inside was a single photo. A woman in black uniform, face serious, eyes sharp. It was her. The Admiral closed the folder and spoke into the phone. "Tell the judge to pause all hearings. I'm on my way." Back in the courtroom, when the break ended, the crowd returned, but this time the energy had changed. Reporters typed faster. Jurors whispered more. Even the prosecutor looked unsure. The judge opened the court again. "Miss Jordan, the court is reviewing new information about your background. Until then, I suggest you speak to a legal advisor." She shook her head gently. "With all respect, I don't need one." The prosecutor leaned forward, annoyed. "This is a courtroom, not a movie. You can't just stand there like some spy and expect us to believe you were given secret honors by the government." She looked at him, still calm. "Why not?" he scoffed. "'Cause we have no record of you. I was trained to leave no record," she said simply. Flashback mission debrief. The woman stands before a round table of generals. One of them says you've saved 400 lives by making a decision no one else would have made. Another adds, "But your name can't be on any paper. This operation didn't happen." She nods once. "I understand." The medal is handed to her. No ceremony, no cameras. Just silence and respect. "Your new identity begins now," the general says. Return to present back in the courtroom. The judge clears his throat. "Miss Jordan, can you tell us what this medal means?" She steps forward and speaks softly but firmly. "It's called the Star of Ghosts. It is awarded to operatives who lead missions so secret that their own names must disappear afterward." The courtroom is silent. No one talks about it. No one writes it down. But every year, 5 people receive it. Sometimes fewer, and when they do, they stop being normal citizens. The judge narrows his eyes. "And you're saying you were one of them?" She doesn't answer. She simply walks back to the table. The prosecutor stands up again. Even if this is true, we can't verify it. We still have proof that she interfered with federal systems. She looks up. I didn't interfere. I protected someone. Who? She doesn't answer. Outside the courtroom, the Admiral's car speeds through the city, escorted by 2 black SUVs. People watch as the military convoy rushes past red lights. Inside the car, the Admiral holds the sealed folder tight in his hand. She saved lives, he says to his aide. And now they want to punish her for silence. Back in court, a sudden change. The judge receives a note from the clerk. He reads it. Eyes go wide. He turns to the courtroom. An admiral from the United States Navy is arriving shortly to testify. Gasps, murmurs. The prosecutor stares. What admiral? The judge responds slowly. Admiral Lucas M. Graves, Chief of Special Operations. The woman in the hoodie looks down briefly, then she smiles, just for a second. Meanwhile, the public starts talking on social media. The courtroom photo leaks. The woman's image in the hoodie spreads like wildfire. Someone posts, "That's the woman from the Fort Ellis mission. I remember her eyes." Another person replies, "She saved my brother's unit in Iraq. We never knew her name." The internet begins to wake up. A reporter talks to the janitor. The reporter corners the janitor again. "Please tell us what you saw back then." He sighs. 10 years ago, I was cleaning an old hangar at Fort Ellis. They held a ceremony late at night. 5 people stood in line. One of them was her. No names. No applause. But they gave her that medal. He looked toward the courtroom door. She's not a criminal. She's a hero that no one was supposed to remember.
Inside final moments.
Before arrival, the courtroom grows tense. Everyone is waiting. The judge adjusts his robe. The prosecutor is sweating. Even the jury looks nervous now. Finally, the double doors swing open. 2 military officers walk in first. Then, the admiral, tall, sharp, serious. He walks straight to the woman, stops in front of her, and then he salutes. Gasps from the audience. One juror drops her pen. Another man in the gallery stands in disbelief. The admiral says only 2 words, "Commander Jordan." The courtroom was no longer quiet. After the admiral walked in and saluted the woman in the hoodie, the silence turned into confusion. Eyes darted, mouths hung open. Reporters clicked photos like gunfire. Every camera in the room pointed toward the woman now known as Commander Jordan. The judge, who once looked stern and skeptical, was now visibly shaken. Admiral Graves. He began slowly, "You're telling this court you recognize this woman?" The admiral nodded. His voice was strong and calm. "She was my superior officer for 3 classified missions. Her leadership saved lives, mine included." The prosecutor shot up from his seat. "But she's the defendant, right? She's been hiding her name, hiding her background." Graves didn't flinch. "That's because she was trained to do so. Her record was erased on purpose. That's standard for Black Veil operatives." The prosecutor frowned. "Black Veil?" The admiral nodded. "A military program so secret, even most top generals aren't told it exists. It was built for missions the world must never know about." The courtroom gasped again. Flashback, 7 years ago. Afghanistan. Border A helicopter kicked up sand as it landed on a rocky hilltop. Soldiers jumped out one by one. At the front was a woman in all black, helmet tight, rifle slung over her shoulder. It was Jordan before the hoodie, before the courtroom. She spoke through a radio calmly. "Alpha team, sweep Northridge. Bravo, hold back until my signal." Voice cut through the wind like a knife. No shouting. No panic. A young soldier next to her whispered, "Ma'am, this plan doesn't look possible. The enemy has 2 snipers posted high ground." She looked through binoculars. "No, they have 3. You missed one." She passed him the scope and pointed toward a shadow on the edge of the cliff. "You see that? That's why I lead this mission." Present day, the courtroom, the admiral continued speaking to the court. She was given the Ghost Star Medal for leading that mission and saving a full convoy of civilian engineers who were trapped behind enemy lines. Her team was outnumbered 4-1, no backup, and yet not one man was lost. The prosecutor shouted, Then why is her name not in any report? Because she didn't use her real name. Because it was part of her oath to never speak of the work she did not, even to defend herself. The judge slowly turned to Jordan. Is this true? He asked gently. Jordan nodded once. Yes, Your Honor. Another flashback. The oath in a dark underground facility. 5 men and women stood in a line, dressed in plain black. No names. No ranks shown. A general stepped forward. From this day forward, you will become shadows. You will fight battles that no one will ever thank you for. You will be ghosts. You'll be forgotten. He moved down the line, handing each one a small black star medal. You are not heroes in public. You are protectors in silence. When the general reached Jordan, he paused. You're the youngest to ever make it this far, he said. You're the only woman. Jordan didn't blink. I didn't come here to be seen, sir. I came here to serve. Present day, the jury reacts. One juror whispered to another, she's not just a soldier, she's a legend. Another juror nodded. We were ready to judge her like she was nothing. The prosecutor was visibly sweating now. His case was falling apart, piece by piece. But the charges, he muttered. She still broke protocol by not revealing her identity. The Admiral turned to him slowly. And you would have rather she revealed it during a mission? Or while she was protecting the names of others still active in the field? The prosecutor had no answer. A new witness comes forward suddenly. A woman in her mid-30s stood up from the back of the courtroom. Her eyes were red. She clutched a folder close to her chest. I want to testify, she said. The judge raised an eyebrow. What's your name? My name is Dr. Lena Ruiz. I'm a former intelligence analyst. Commander Jordan saved me. Again, she walked forward, hands trembling. 2 years ago, I found evidence of illegal weapons transfers inside the agency. I tried to report it, but people threatened me. They followed me. I had nowhere to go. She looked at Jordan. She found me. I don't know how, but she kept me hidden for weeks. Then she handed over a flash drive to the right people and disappeared. Out. Prosecutors shouted. This is not part of the official testimony. The judge raised his hand. Let her finish. Dr. Ruiz's voice cracked. She didn't want credit. She just wanted to protect me. And now, they've dragged her into court like a criminal. Flashback the rescue A. Small apartment. The lights are off. Rain hits the windows. Dr. Ruiz sits in the corner, crying, holding her laptop. The door opens gently. Jordan enters face. Hidden by a hoodie, she kneels beside her and whispers, pack a bag. We move in 10 minutes. Who are you? I'm someone who still believes in right and wrong. Back in court, the judge's turning point, the judge sat in silence for a long moment. Then, he removed his glasses and said, I think I understand now. This isn't just a trial, it's a mistake. The prosecutor stepped forward. Your Honor, the judge cut him off. No more. This woman gave up her name, her life, her future, for a country that now questions if she belongs. He turned to Jordan. You have the court's deepest respect, Commander. But Jordan didn't smile. She simply nodded again. There's still someone in this room hiding the truth, she said softly. Everyone froze. She looked directly at someone sitting, quietly behind the prosecutor's table. Her eyes narrowed, and the tension in the room rose once again. The courtroom was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not the bored silence from earlier, when everyone thought the woman in the hoodie was just a nobody. Now the silence was thick, heavy, tense. Eyes weren't on the judge anymore. They were on Commander Jordan. She had just said something no one expected. There's still someone in this room hiding the truth. The words hung in the air like smoke. The judge leaned forward. Miss Jordan, who are you talking about? Jordan's eyes slowly moved from the judge to the prosecution table and stopped on the prosecutor's assistant. A clean-shaven man with perfect hair, sharp glasses, and a face that never smiled. He had been quiet the entire trial, taking notes, whispering things to the prosecutor. But now his face had turned pale. He tried to look calm, but his hands started shaking. Jordan pointed at him. That man worked with the people who wanted Dr. Ruiz silenced. I've seen him before. Gasps filled the courtroom. The prosecutor looked stunned. That's ridiculous. My assistant is a federal agent. Jordan looked him straight in the eyes. No, he's a plant. He's not who you think he is. Flashback a hidden meeting late night. A dark parking lot. Two men stand near a black SUV. One of them wears glasses and speaks in a low voice. She knows too much, he says. If that file leaks, we're finished. The other man replies, then stop her before she talks. The man with glasses nods. He's the same assistant now, sitting at the prosecutor's table. Back to the courtroom, the prosecutor turned to his assistant. Tell them it's not true. Duh. The man stood slowly. His face was expressionless. He looked at Jordan, then the Admiral, then the judge, and then he ran. Right there in court, he pushed his chair back and sprinted for the doors. Security. The judge shouted. 2 guards tackled him. Before he reached the exit, the entire courtroom rose to their feet in shock. One of the guards grabbed the man's ID badge and scanned it. The screen showed no record found. The prosecutor looked like he had been punched. I don't understand. It's been working with me for months. Jordan stood calmly. That was your mistake. You trusted someone who was never meant to be seen. That's how people like him work. In the holding room, the fake assistant was dragged into a small holding room. Agents swarmed in. They searched him. What they found shocked them even more. A flash drive, a burner phone, and a small pin shaped like a black snake hand, old symbol used by rogue agents, known as Shadow Nest. The Admiral walked into the room, picked up the pin, held it in his gloved hand. They were disbanded years ago, he whispered. Or, so we thought. The judge reopens the courtroom. Back in the courtroom, the judge spoke again. I'm issuing a warrant to have that man investigated by federal intelligence. Immediately. He turned to Jordan. You were right again. Again. But Jordan remained still. There are more like him, she said. This is not over. The prosecutor breaks down after the court recessed again. The prosecutor walked slowly out of the room and sat alone on a bench in the hallway. His face looked pale, tired, lost. The young reporter approached him. Sir, did you really not know? He shook his head. I thought I was doing my job. I thought this case was clean. I had no idea they assigned someone to me. He looked up at the reporter. I mocked her. I called her a liar. But now I feel like I was the fool. Flashback. First day of the trial, the prosecutor stood in front of the jury on day 1. This woman has no history, no identity. She's a ghost. Now he realized. She wasn't a ghost. She was a shield. She had kept others safe, even when no one stood for her. Inside the courtroom, the jury talks. The jurors had been silent for most of the trial, but now they were talking among themselves. She doesn't act like she's scared. Did you hear how that man ran when she exposed him? She was protecting people. That's why she kept quiet. One older juror, a woman with silver hair and gentle eyes, said softly, we were ready to judge her because of how she looked. But she was risking her life while we were sitting comfortably at home. The Admiral speaks again. The judge allowed Admiral Graves to make one final statement before the next break. He stood before the courtroom and looked directly at the jury. Commander Jordan saved more lives than most people could count. She did it in silence. She asked for no praise. And now she stands here on trial for protecting others once again. He paused, and that is the true mistake. Not hers. Ours. Jordan's warning as the court recessed again. A young soldier approached. Jordan in the hallway, ma'am, he whispered. Are you going to be okay? She looked him in the eyes. There are still names I haven't said. People who are still working in shadows. The soldier nodded. Jordan's voice lowered. But if they think I'm afraid now, they forgot who I am. Back in the holding room, a new threat. The man who had run was now locked in a cell. But he wasn't afraid. He smiled and whispered into a hidden mic in his jacket. They know about her now. Plan B begins. A message was sent. A cold wind blew outside the courthouse. The clouds had grown darker. The city seemed to slow down as if it knew something big was coming. Inside, the courtroom lights flickered for a brief moment. Power returned. People noticed. Something didn't feel right. Commander Jordan sat alone again at the defense table. This time, the room wasn't laughing at her. No one dared. The judge had stepped out for a private meeting. The jury had been taken to a separate waiting area. But in the gallery, whispers still floated like smoke. That guy wasn't a real prosecutor's assistant, they said. He had shadow nest symbols on him. She knew it before anyone else. Even the security guards, once cold and dismissive, stood straighter near her now. One of them glanced at her and gave a subtle nod of respect. Meanwhile, at a secure military base hundreds of miles away, in a high-tech underground facility, a red emergency phone began to ring. A young officer picked it up. "Yes, sir?" The voice on the other end was sharp, deep, controlled. "This is Admiral Howard Grant, Joint Special Forces Command. Inform all departments. Activate Level 5 protocol. I'm heading to the courthouse." The officer paused. "Sir? Are you sure?" "That's outside our zone." The voice cut him off. "We have a compromised agent, a corrupt courtroom, the most decorated field commander this country ever buried in paperwork. I'm not letting her stand alone." Back in the courtroom, a growing crowd word had spread. Outside the courthouse, a crowd was forming, not protesters, not reporters. Veterans, soldiers, agents, people from all branches of the military stood. Behind the police tape in silence, many had tears in their eyes. Some wore dog tags. Others held small American flags close to their chest. They weren't here for show. They were here for her, inside. Jordan stared down at her hands. They were calm, still, but inside her chest. Her heart was heavy. She remembered names of people she had saved, names of people she had lost, and names she wasn't allowed to speak, not even now. She thought of Ruiz, the whistleblower she had protected. She thought of Graves, the admiral who saluted her in open court. She thought of the agent who ran when she exposed him. And then she thought of one more name. Howard. Flashback 5 years ago, Syria border, a black helicopter touched down under moonlight. Commander Jordan ran to it with a wounded soldier on her back. At the door stood a tall man in Navy uniform. "Put him down." He yelled, "We're out of time." Jordan laid the soldier inside. She was bleeding, limping, but she didn't flinch. "Is this your last evac point?" she asked. The man, Admiral Howard Grant, nodded. "I'll hold them off," she said. "Get the others out." He looked her in the eyes. "You don't need to be a hero," she replied without emotion. "I'm not a hero. I'm a soldier." The helicopter rose. He watched as she disappeared into the darkness. He never saw her again until now. The convoy rolls in back in the present. Sirens echoed in the distance. A convoy of 4 black SUVs and a military vehicle pulled up in front of the courthouse. Agents rushed out. Soldiers in full-dress uniforms stood at attention. From the lead car, a tall man stepped out. Sharp navy blue uniform. Dozens of pins. Silver hair. Serious eyes. It was Admiral Howard Grant. He didn't speak, he didn't smile, simply walked forward through the crowd. As everyone stepped aside to let him pass, the guards at the courthouse doors opened them without a word. Inside the final entrance, the doors of the courtroom opened once more. Everyone turned. Admiral Grant walked in. People gasped. Some stood. He walked directly toward Jordan. For a long moment, said nothing. Then in front of the entire courtroom, he saluted her. "Commander Jordan, permission to speak on your behalf." She nodded gently. "Granted, sir." The judge. The judge re-entered the courtroom and froze when he saw Admiral Grant. You're leading Joint Special Forces." Grant nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. And I'm here to testify." "Commander Jordan is no criminal. She's one of the few reasons I'm alive." The judge blinked. "But her files." Grant cut him off. "Her records were erased under Black Veil Protocol. I signed the clearance myself. Her missions are still sealed, even to Congress." He placed a thick black folder on the desk. "This is what I can legally share." The folder opens. The room reacts. The judge opened the file slowly. Photos, reports, maps, medals, images of Jordan leading teams, rescuing civilians, disarming bombs. Her face never smiling, but always calm. Always there. Gasps filled the room again. The prosecutor slumped in his chair. The jury stared. One juror whispered, "She's not just a soldier. She's something else." Another said, "She's what we should all hope to be." Admiral Grant's statement standing tall, the Admiral addressed the courtroom. This woman held her silence not out of fear but out of loyalty. She followed orders, protected lives, and carried truths that would destroy entire agencies if spoken out loud. And now, she's being punished for doing the right thing. He turned to Jordan. "I should have come sooner," she replied softly. "You came when it mattered." Outside, a symbol of honor back outside, a group of veterans held up a large banner. "We stand with Commander Jordan." TV stations began broadcasting live. People across the country began to watch. One mother turned to her son, pointed at the screen, and said, "That's what a real hero looks like." Back inside, a final whisper. Jordan leaned toward the Admiral. "Still one more name on the inside?" she whispered. He nodded. "I figured." Jordan's voice lowered. "I'm going to expose them. Just need time." The courtroom emptied slowly after Admiral Grant's powerful testimony. But outside, the tension was still rising. The public, the press, and even the military had now heard the name, Commander Jordan, the woman once mocked for wearing a hoodie. Now had soldiers standing outside the building, holding flags and saluting. Inside the courthouse halls, however, something else was happening. Something quiet, something dangerous. Whispers. Behind the walls, the long hallway outside the courtroom echoed with footsteps and quiet voices. Lawyers passed each other, avoiding eye contact. Officers stood by the doors, alert.
Dead body.
But near the end of the hallway where no cameras could seat, two men stood in silence. Both wore suits. Both looked like high-ranking government officials. The taller one whispered, "She wasn't supposed to make it this far." The other replied, "And now the Admiral's involved. It's a mess. We should have buried this years ago." The second man's eyes narrowed. "She still doesn't know everything. There's one name she hasn't found yet." They both looked toward the courtroom doors. Then the tall man said something chilling. "If she speaks again tomorrow, may have to shut her down permanently." The janitor listens. What they didn't know was someone else was standing nearby, listening. The old janitor. The same one who recognized Jordan's medal in Part 1. He stood in the corner with his mop, pretending to clean the floor, head down, but his ears were sharp. When the two men left, he stepped into the light. His eyes looked serious now. He pulled out an old phone from his pocket and dialed. "It's me," he whispered. "They're still planning something. You were right. She's not safe." Flashback, the janitor's past 10 years ago. The janitor wasn't a janitor at all. He wore a uniform, tactical gear, dog tags. He stood in a snowy forest with a woman giving orders to his unit. That woman was Jordan. He had seen her make impossible decisions. He had seen her run into fire when others froze, and now he owed her his life. Back in the courthouse, Jordan walks alone after the courtroom cleared. Jordan stayed behind. She walked the hall slowly, her footsteps quiet on the marble floor. The trial would continue in the morning. But for now, she was alone, or so she thought. From the shadows, the janitor stepped forward. "Commander," he said gently. She turned. Recognized him. "Ellis." He nodded. "I didn't want to interrupt, ma'am, but you should know. They're planning something. I heard them outside." Jordan took a deep breath. "Who?" He hesitated. "Two men. One in a gray tie. The other wore a lapel pin. Looked like defense intelligence." Jordan looked down, thinking. Her mind connected pieces quickly. Then, "It's worse than I thought," she whispered. "They're not just trying to silence me. They're covering something deeper." In the judge's chambers, quiet doubt meanwhile, Judge Harper sat alone at his desk. He rubbed his forehead and stared at Jordan's file, what little of it there was. The thick military folder sat beside it, filled with classified reports, blacked-out paragraphs, and unconfirmed missions. He muttered to himself. "How many times have we punished the wrong person just because they stayed silent?" He reached for his pen and began writing notes for the next hearing, then stopped. A line from one of the documents stared back at him. Operation Silver Torch. Status: terminated. Lead: CDR Jordan. Oversight Officer. Classified. He circled the words. Who was her superior during this mission? He asked himself. And why was their name still redacted? At a safe house, Dr. Ruiz watches the news DR. Lena Ruiz sat on a worn sofa, eyes locked on the TV screen. Her photo had been shown on the news earlier, her statement about Commander Jordan. Now public. But she didn't care about fame. She cared about truth. She picked up her laptop, opened a hidden folder, and typed in a code. Inside was the original. File Jordan had risked her freedom to protect. Corrupt military contracts. Secret prison sites. Legal experiments on soldiers and names. Many names, but one had always been blurred, blacked out, erased. Ruiz zoomed in suddenly. A name began to appear. The encryption was cracking. Her hands trembled. Back at the courthouse, Admiral Grant makes a call in a private room. Admiral Grant called his office. Run every background check on the courtroom staff. Every clerk. Every lawyer. I want to know if Shadow Nest has a mole here. His aide replied, Sir. That might include government officials. I don't care, he snapped. No more mistakes.
Oh.
Jordan stood alone long enough. And Ellis talked back in the hallway. Jordan leaned against the wall. Talking to the old janitor, Ellis. I always wondered what happened to you after the Kabul mission, she said. He smiled faintly. I got out. Took the long road. But I watched. You from afar. She nodded. Then he said something that made her pause. I think one of the men I heard mention a code word. Project Ashfall. Jordan's eyes sharpened. That wasn't supposed to exist anymore. He nodded. I remember you tried to shut it down. She stared ahead, voice low. Then someone brought it back, and they'll do anything too. Stop me from remembering. Back outside, the crowd grows words spread across social media. Thousands of viewers were now watching live streams from outside the courthouse. Veterans arrived with candles. Families of soldiers stood with signs saying, Truth for Jordan and honor our ghosts. One woman told a reporter, My brother was rescued in a mission we never got the name of, but I'm sure she was there. I feel it. Inside the building, Jordan heard the faint sound of them chanting her name. For the first time, her lips curved into a quiet, small smile. That night, a hacker makes a move far away. In a dim apartment lit only by computer screens, a figure typed fast. Lines of code filled the screen. His target, Federal Archives. His goal, decrypt Project Ashfall. When he got in, a warning flashed. Unauthorized access detected. Alert sent to Director K. The hacker froze. But before he could log out, one file opened. And inside that file was a picture of Jordan, standing next to someone they thought was dead. Morning. Sunlight pushed through the courthouse windows, but inside it still felt dark. Everyone had returned for the next session. The crowd had doubled. TV cameras waited outside. Social media hashtags like hashtag Justice for Jordan and hashtag Commander in the Shadows were now trending across the country. But Jordan didn't care about the attention. She cared about one thing, the truth. And the truth was hiding behind someone on the witness list. The trial resumes. Judge Harper walked in, his face calm but serious. He looked at Jordan, then at Admiral Grant, who sat beside her now as an official military representative. All rise, the bailiff said. The courtroom stood and sat. The judge cleared his throat. Today the prosecution will call its first key witness. The prosecutor rose. This time he wasn't arrogant. He looked nervous. Your Honor, the government calls Agent Simon Keller. To the stand. Whispers filled the room. Keller. He had worked in national defense for over a decade. He was respected, experienced, and now he was going to testify against Commander Jordan, or so people thought. The witness takes the stand. Seaman Keller walked in slowly, suit pressed, tie tight. Eyes cold, he sat in the witness box, placed his hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor began, Agent Keller, do you know the defendant? Keller nodded. I do. How long have you known her? Since 2017. We crossed paths during certain government operations. Jordan said nothing, but her eyes studied every movement Keller made. Would you describe her actions during those operations as reckless? Keller didn't answer at first. Then, no. The courtroom shifted. People leaned forward. The prosecutor blinked. Excuse me? Keller's voice was calm. I said no. She wasn't reckless. She was the reason any of us came back alive. Flashback inside the safe house A dark room. Bullet holes in the wall. Team of 5 agents hiding behind crates. Running out of ammo, one of them, Keller, was bleeding badly outside. Enemy footsteps grew louder. Then the door burst open. It was Jordan. She took down the threat in seconds. Carried Keller out on her shoulders. Never said a word back in court. The witness shakes. The prosecutor tried to recover, but you wrote in your statement that she disobeyed orders. Keller looked down at his hands, then up. I was told to say that. By who? Silence. By who, Agent Keller? The judge repeated. Keller's hands trembled. By a man from Washington. He wore a defense intelligence pin. He gave me a script. He told me if I didn't say Jordan was unstable, they'd pull my clearance. Gasps. The prosecutor's face turned pale. Jordan stands. She slowly rose from her seat. Your Honor, she said calmly, I request that this witness be allowed to speak freely, without government pressure. The judge nodded. Permission granted. Jordan looked at Keller. Tell the court what really happened on Operation Ashfall. Keller's eyes filled with something rare for a trained agent. Fear, he whispered. You're not supposed to remember. That flashback Operation Ashfalla, snowy field in Eastern Europe. Jordan leads a team into a bunker. Inside, they find something that shocks them all. American prisoners. In a secret black site run by corrupt government officials, men in suits arrive. Armed, they tell Jordan to walk away, but she'll do. She'll records everything. She'll freeze the prisoners. She disappears into the storm. Back to the courtroom. Keller breaks down. Keller's voice cracked now. She wasn't supposed to be there, but she showed up anyway. She shut the whole place down. If it weren't for her, they would have killed everyone. The prosecutor objected. None of this is in the records. The judge slammed the gavel. Maybe that's the problem. Keller turned to Jordan. I'm sorry. I was weak. I let them scare me. Jordan nodded. You stood up today. That's enough. In the gallery, a reaction DR. Lena Ruiz sat quietly, watching Keller collapse on the stand. She whispered to herself, that confirms it. Project Ashfall was real. She opened her laptop. The name had finally decrypted. The man in charge of Project Ashfall? Director Kenneth Hale. A man who had been declared dead 5 years ago in a car explosion. But Ruiz had just found his face in a recent security feed. Walking into the courthouse. Elsewhere, 2 men in a van parked outside the courthouse was a black van. Inside sat 2 agents. One watched a screen. The other loaded a weapon. She's getting too close. One of them said. The other nodded. Orders are clear. She doesn't. Walk out today. They turned up the volume on the audio feed coming from the courtroom. Keller steps down. The crowd reacts as Keller left the stand. The courtroom exploded with murmurs. Some clapped. Some cried. The prosecutor looked completely broken. He sat down without another word. The judge turned to Jordan. Commander, do you wish to say anything before we reassess? Jordan stood. She walked to the center of the courtroom. Jordan's statement, I never wanted my face to be known, she began. I didn't join the military to be a hero. I did it because I believed in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. She looked at the jury. I followed orders, till the orders started protecting power, not people. Her voice grew stronger. I exposed corruption once before. I'm about to do it again. She looked straight at the cameras. To the man watching this now, you erased my name. You faked your death. But I remember who you are, Director Hale. In the van panicking side the black van, the agents froze. She knows. Said his name. One grabbed the walkie-talkie. Sir, what do we do now? a voice replied coldly. Plan B, no more courtroom. The courtroom was quiet after Jordan said the name. Director Kenneth Hale, the man who was declared dead 5 years ago, the man behind Project Ashel, the man now hunting her. People stared at her in shock. Some didn't recognize the name, but others, especially the military officers in the gallery, knew exactly what it meant. One whispered, "He's alive." "That can't be true." Another said, "If she's right, everything we thought we knew is a lie." In the judge's chambers, Judge Harper sat alone, staring at the name on a piece of paper. Director Kenneth Hale's status. Deceased, but now wasn't sure. He picked up the phone and called the federal court security office. "I want every camera feed inside this building. Reviewed every hallway, every entrance. Right now." The man on the other end hesitated. "Sir, the footage from the last hour has been deleted."
What?
"Gone. Someone wiped it from the system, from the inside." Outside, the crowd grows outside the courthouse. More veterans and supporters had gathered. The crowd was now in the way. Hundreds. They held handmade signs. "Protect Jordan Silenced for Service, who is Director K." But among the peaceful crowd, a black SUV rolled in slowly. Dark windows. No plates. Inside, a man in a gray coat stared coldly at the courthouse doors. He pressed a small device. "The inside team is ready. Go when I give the word." Back inside, Jordan receives a warning in the hallway. Jordan stood beside Admiral Grant, whispering fast, "We don't have much time. If Hale is really here, he's not going to wait for court rules." The Admiral nodded. "We can pull you out right now. Military transport, safe house, witness protection." Jordan shook her head. "If I leave, they'll spin it. Say I ran. I need to finish this." Grant leaned closer. "Then we need a backup plan." That's when a voice interrupted them. It was the old janitor Ellis. He stepped out of the shadows. "I think I can help with that." Flashback Ellis's final mission years ago. Ellis had been a field agent, one of the best. His final mission was during a failed extraction. He lost half his team and was forced into early retirement. Commander Jordan had pulled him out of that fire. And now, all these years later, he was returning the favor. The secret tunnel Ellis walked them down a long hallway in the lower floor of the courthouse. He opened a storage closet, but behind it was a hidden door. "This building was designed during the Cold War," he said. "In case of emergency evacuation, few people even know it's here." Admiral Grant raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" Ellis smirked. "I helped build it." Jordan looked at the dark tunnel below. "If things go wrong in that courtroom, we'll use this." At the same time, Ruiz finds the final file in her safe house. Dr. Lena Ruiz finally cracked the encrypted folder. It wasn't just files. It was video footage. Footage of Director Kenneth Hale standing with other officials, watching illegal experiments, proving secret detentions, ordering cover dash-ups, and then a recent clip Hay walking through a government parking lot. In present-day clothing, he was alive, and he was inside the courthouse. Ruiz grabbed her phone and dialed Jordan's emergency contact. "Tell her now. He's there." The court resumes, but something feels wrong. Jordan entered the courtroom again. Admiral Grant sat beside her. The prosecutor was still pale, unsure what to say. The jury looked shaken, but the air in the room had changed. Jordan noticed something strange, too. New security guards had entered the courtroom, but their uniforms weren't quite right. The name tags didn't match. They didn't make eye contact with anyone. Admiral Grant leaned in. "They're not real officers." Jordan didn't reply. She simply reached under the table and pressed a hidden button. Ellis had installed one that activated a silent signal to the escape tunnel. Outside, the black SUV moves in the van outside. The man in gray pressed his earpiece. "Go," he said. Inside the courtroom, the two fake officers moved suddenly, one toward the judge, the other toward Jordan's screams. The jury jumped. Admiral Grant blocked Jordan just in time, flipping the table over for cover. The judge shouted, "Guards!" but real guards had already rushed in. One of the attackers pulled out a syringe. Jordan grabbed his wrist, twisted hard, and slammed him against the table. "Nice try," she said coldly. The other attacker was tackled by real officers. Jordan makes the call amid the chaos. Jordan turned to Grant and Ellis. "Now." They ran out the side door. Ellis led them quickly through the hallway, past panicked staff, down into the hidden tunnel. Alarms began to ring upstairs. The building was in lockdown, but the backup plan was already in motion. The tunnel. Escape in silence. The tunnel was dark, cold and silent, but Jordan walked with purpose. Admiral Grant kept close behind her, radio in hand. Ellis shut the hatch behind them. "She's heading toward the extraction point," he said. A black van waited at the far end of the tunnel, headlights. Off they climbed in. The van pulled away just minutes before agents sealed the entire building back in the courtroom. The aftermath, the judge was shaken, but unharmed. 2 fake guards were arrested. Both carried federal IDs, but neither existed in the system. One refused to speak. The other whispered one phrase before being taken away. "You can't stop Hale." In a safe location, a new strategy that night, Jordan stood in a quiet cabin, surrounded by military security. She looked at the laptop. Screen Ruiz had sent her. The footage of Hale, the documents, the secrets. Admiral Grant stood beside her. "We release this, and the country burns." Jordan stared at the screen. "We release this, and the truth wins." She picked up her phone. "It's time for me to speak. Not in court, not in silence, but on every screen in the country." The nation was confused. The news showed blurry images of chaos in a courtroom. Headlines read, "Assassination attempt during military trial. Who is Commander Jordan?" Was the court infiltrated? But none of the news stations had answers. Only one person did, and she was getting ready to speak inside the cabin. A plan unfolds. Commander Jordan stood in a small room lit by one overhead light. She wore the same hoodie she had worn in court, but now medals and a military ID badge hung proudly around her neck. Admiral Grant sat at a desk with a laptop. Ruiz was on video call, feeding in files from the safe house. The old janitor, Ellis, stood guard at the window with binoculars. "This live stream will go through 3 relays," Ruiz said. "If they try to shut it down, it'll bounce back." Jordan nodded. "I'm not just telling my story. I'm exposing everything." Flashback her last public speech, the last time Jordan had spoken in front of a camera. It was in uniform. She had stood at a soldier's funeral, surrounded by grieving families, and even then, she had barely spoken. Words don't matter. If truth is kept behind closed doors, she had said now, it was time to open those doors. Going live, the camera turned on. A quiet beep signaled that the stream had started. At first, just a few people watched, then dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Jordan looked straight into the camera. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She spoke calmly. Jordan's message to the nation: "My name is Commander Maya Jordan," she said. "You've seen parts of my story. A courtroom, a hoodie, a medal. But that's not the full truth." She held up a photo one of her and soldiers standing outside a destroyed bunker. This was Operation Ashfall, a mission that was erased from government files. She placed another image on the desk director Hale's face. "This man was supposed to be dead. But he's not. He's hiding in your systems, your courts, your security agencies." People watching across the country leaned forward. "She tried to warn us." A woman whispered at her TV. "She's a ghost," someone else said. "A ghost telling the truth." "She shows the files." Jordan turned the camera to the laptop screen. Ruiz is. Documents flashed across its evidence of illegal black sites, erased agents, stolen funds, and signed orders from Hale himself. "I didn't run from the courtroom," Jordan said. "They tried to silence me because I protected a woman who exposed all of this." She paused. "They failed." Reactions around the country. In a police station, officers gathered around a screen. "She was testifying yesterday," one officer said. "Now she's declaring war on corruption." At a military base, young soldiers watched in silence. One whispered, "That's the woman who saved my dad. He never told the full story, but I recognize her now." In a school, A history teacher paused her lesson and turned the screen to the class. "Remember this moment," she said, "because this is what real courage looks like." In Washington, panic begins inside a federal office. Men in suits scrambled. "She's naming names," one shouted. "Shut the stream down. Can't it's bouncing through international servers." A bald man in a gray coat stood by the window, silent. He was Hale's contact. "She's drawing them out," he said softly. "She's not just telling the truth. She's setting a trap." Jordan reveals a hidden detail back in the live stream. Jordan held up an old keychain. "This was given to me by a prisoner I rescued in Ashfall." He said it was the only thing they let him keep. She pressed a small button hidden on the chain. A hologram appeared, a map of secret facilities. And voice recordings. Director Hale's voice. "If she talks, we burn it all. Erase her. Delete. Her files, she never existed." Jordan turned back to the camera. "You hear that? That's what they think of loyalty." Suddenly the feed cuts out, the screen turned black. A message appeared. "Signal lost." Millions gasped. She was cut off. Someone shouted online, but 5 seconds later, the stream returned. Jordan sat calmly. "You think I didn't plan for that?" The audience exploded with comments. "She's a legend." "You go, Commander. They can't stop her now." "Admiral." Grant speaks. Jordan turned the camera to Admiral Grant. He looked straight into the lens. "I stand by every word. I served with her. I owe her my life. And now, so do all of you." He picked up a paper and read the names of the soldiers she saved one by one. "My name is on this list too." Final words from Jordan. Jordan looked into the camera for the last time. "It took everything from me. My name, my voice. But I never stopped protecting this country, even when it stopped protecting me." She reached for her medal, holding it in her hand. "You can't erase a warrior." The screen faded to black. Reactions flood in online, millions of views. Millions of shares. Veterans came forward, confirming Jordan's past. Former agents posted videos saying, "We knew. We were forced to stay silent." News anchors cried on live TV. One said, "For years she was hidden. She's the most trusted woman in America." But in the shadows, Hale watches far away, in a dark room. A man stood watching multiple screens. Director Hale. He wasn't hiding now. He lit a cigar and whispered, "Let her have her moment. It won't last." Then he turned to his assistant. "Get me the Phoenix. Protocol. It's time." The world had seen the truth. Commander Jordan's live stream was the most watched video in the country, but not everyone clapped. Not everyone cried. Some prepared for war. In the shadows, Hale's hideout, secret location. Multiple screens glowed in the dark. On each screen, Jordan's face. Director Kenneth Hale stood silently, smoke from his cigar curling into the air. Behind him, a young assistant in black spoke nervously. "Sir, the Pentagon is demanding answers. Agents are resigning." Media quiet. Hale said coldly. He picked up a black briefcase. Inside was a silver key. He turned it, and a red light lit up on the screen. A code appeared. Phoenix Protocol. Level 9 access GRNT. The assistant's eyes widened. "You're actually activating it?" Hale's voice was quiet, but sharp. "I burned one version of this country already. What's one more fire?" "What is the Phoenix Protocol?" Years ago, during the height of international tensions, a secret plan was created. If any agent, any person threatened to reveal too much, Phoenix Protocol would be activated. Not just to erase them, but to erase everyone connected to them. Their friends, allies, data, homes, families, even courtrooms. Jordan wasn't just in danger now. Everyone who stood beside her was at the safe house. The message arrives. Jordan stood by the window. Watching the forest, she felt something heavy in her, just like the quiet before a storm. Inside, Admiral Grant and Dr. Ruiz were discussing next steps. Ellis was monitoring radio chatter. Then a laptop beeped. A new file had been sent. Ruiz opened it carefully. There were no words, just a single symbol on the screen. A burning phoenix. Her hands froze. "Oh no," she whispered. "He activated it." "Admiral." Grant stood up quickly. "He's going scorched earth." Jordan turned slowly. "It's coming for everyone." Flashback: the origin of Phoenix 8 years ago. Jordan had seen the file. She had been assigned to deliver a secret message to Hale's office. But when the door opened early, she saw something she wasn't meant to see. A boardroom of men. Watching simulations, one screen showed towns being shut down, people erased, lives altered, and on the folder in Hale's hand, the words Phoenix, Protocol. She never forgot. She thought it had been shut down after the war. She was wrong. First target, Dr. Lena Ruiz, that night. As Ruiz packed her things to move to a new safe house, her phone rang. "Dr. Ruiz, this is the state. The emergency line. Please step outside. We've sent an armored vehicle." She paused. "How do I know this is real?" A beat of silence. Then a soft click on the line. That sound, she'd heard it before. Ghost signal used by Shadow Nest agents. Her eyes widened. "They've found me," she whispered. Ruiz's escape. Ruiz grabbed her laptop, shoved the drives into a bag, and ran for the back door. Just as she opened it, bang! A bullet shattered the front window. She dove behind the trash bins, her breath fast and shaking. Then, headlights appeared, a truck screeched to a stop. It was Ellis, sent by Jordan minutes earlier. He threw open the door. "Get in." Ruiz didn't ask questions. She leaped in, and they sped off, just as the safe house exploded behind them. Back at the cabin, preparing for the attack, Jordan stood at a wooden table, drawing maps and marking names. "We're not running anymore," she said. Admiral Grant nodded. "Then we fight." He called in favors, old friends, trusted officers, people who believed in truth, not titles. Within hours, 3 retired SEALs, 2 pilots, and a cybersecurity expert arrived at the cabin. It was no longer a hideout. It was now headquarters around the country. More attacks begin. Military. Clerk in New Mexico, who once worked with Jordan, was arrested under fake charges. A journalist in Chicago who helped Ruiz publish early data was poisoned at lunch but survived. A student in Virginia who tweeted support for Jordan found his scholarship revoked. System was turning against truth, but the people were waking up. Online reactions, a movement. Forms hashtags flooded the internet. Hashtag stand with Jordan. Hashtag Phoenix is real. Hashtag this is bigger than her. Veterans from across the U.S. posted videos. "I served with Commander Jordan. I saw what she did. She saved my unit when command gave up. She's the reason I'm here to hold my daughter." People didn't just believe her now. They were ready to protect her. A message from Hale then. A video appeared on every news station. It was Hale. He looked calm, clean, dangerous. "There has been a national security breach," he said. "One woman is spreading lies to divide this country. She is no longer a soldier. She is an enemy." He stared straight into the camera. "You have 48 hours to turn her in, or the consequences will be historic." Then the screen went black. Jordan watches Hale's threat. She sat silently after watching the broadcast. Then she stood and spoke softly. "He just made a mistake." Admiral Grant raised a brow. "How?" Jordan turned toward the team. "He gave us 48 hours. That means he's hiding something. He's not ready for what's coming." She picked up a marker and circled a location on the map. A secret base in Wyoming, one's used for storing Phoenix protocol data. That's where it ends. Final scene? A dangerous decision. The cabin lights flickered. Drones buzzed in the sky. The team moved fast, packing gear, copying files, setting up decoys. Ruiz uploaded the last video proof onto backup drives and handed one to Jordan. "If anything happens to me," she said, "you finish this." "Hush." Jordan nodded. She walked outside, stars above, pine trees around, but the fight was only beginning. The snow fell quietly over the Wyoming mountains. Cold wind howled through the trees. But deep beneath the frozen ground, a secret base waited in silence. Not a single sign.
Ow.
No guards on the surface. Just a flat patch of land surrounded by pine trees to the world. It was nothing, but to Commander Jordan was everything, because hidden underground was the one place that held the last piece of the truth. And if she could get to it before Director, how? She could finally end this war. The plan begins back at the cabin. Jordan stood over the map with her small team. She traced a finger across the page. This location, she said, was used by the Defense Intelligence Program during the Ashfall years. I believe they stored physical backups here. Files, recordings, hard drives. Dr. Ruiz nodded. If even half of that data is still inside, we'll have the proof to shut him down in court in public. Admiral Grant crossed his arms. And what makes you think Hale won't already be there? Jordan's eyes hardened. I hope he is. Building the team, they couldn't do this alone. Jordan called on old friends, people she once saved. Can people who once saved her? Soon, they had 2 ex-military engineers who could break through electronic locks. A Navy pilot with experience, flying under radar, former hacker who once worked for the Shadow Nest and escaped, and Ellis, who knew how to get in and out of secure facilities without being seen. Everyone knew the risks, but no one hesitated. We're not just helping Jordan, the hacker said. We're helping every name they tried to erase. Flashback. Jordan's first mission years ago, before she became a commander. Jordan had been sent on a solo recon near the Russian border. She was young, quiet, and underestimated. Her orders were to observe only. But when she saw innocent villagers trapped in crossfire, she broke protocol. She saved every one of them. Her superior tried to file a complaint, but Admiral Grant overruled him that day. She stopped following orders blindly and started following her conscience. Arrival at the mountain, the team reached the site before sunrise. Thick fog wrapped the forest. In silence, they parked far from the entrance and moved on foot. Jordan crouched behind a tree and whispered into her earpiece. Ruiz, what do you see? Inside the cabin, Dr. Ruiz had hacked into satellite feeds. Still no movement on the surface, but there's heat coming from underground. Someone's there. Jordan nodded. She turned to Ellis. Still remember the access point, he grinned. I helped bury it. He led the group to a patch of rocky ground near a small hill. He brushed away snow and leaves. Clunk. A metal hatch still sealed. But not locked for long. They entered the base, the hatch creaked open. Inside, darkness, they climbed down a cold ladder. One by one, lights flickered as the hacker connected his laptop to the old power port. Welcome to the graveyard, he said. Dust floated in the air. Long hallways stretched in every direction. Old security cameras blinked slowly. Admiral Grant whispered, This place hasn't been touched in years. Jordan replied, Not legally. Inside the server room, they finally reached a steel door. Security vault level 7. It was protected by a 6-digit code and a fingerprint scanner. Ellis stepped forward. I'll handle the fingerprint. Someone has to crack the code. The hacker smiled. I've waited my whole life for a lock like this. Minutes later, click. The door opened. Inside were dozens of hard drives, military tapes, and folders labeled Project Ashfall subject files. Ghost Agents Hale authorization. Top Secret. Jordan stared at the files. This is it. But they aren't alone. Suddenly dash footsteps. Fast. Heavy, close. Jordan raised a fist. Everyone froze. Lights dimmed. Then, voices. We know you're here, Commander. The voice came through a speaker in the hallway. It was Hale. You've come far, but this is where it ends. Doors behind them slammed shut. The room went dark. Alarms began to blare. Hale's trapped far above. In a black chopper hovering over the trees. Hale watched a screen. He smiled. I knew she'd go for the base. He said to his men, I wanted her to. He pressed a button. Seal it. When prepare for detonation. One of his officers hesitated. Sir, the blast will destroy everything, including the evidence. Hale smirked. Exactly. If I can't erase her, I'll erase the truth. Jordan reacts fast. Back underground, the hacker yelled. We have 3 minutes before lockdown completes. Jordan grabbed the hard drives. Download everything you can. Now, Grant and Ellis worked to open a side tunnel in old emergency. Exit. They pried open a vent just as smoke began pouring from the walls. "He's going to blow it," Ruiz said over the radio. "Get out now." The engineer shoved a small storage cube into Jordan's hand. "This holds it all?" Jordan turned to the others. "Go." "I'll hold them back, but they stay no," Admiral Grant said. "We finish this together." They raced through the tunnel. Behind them, the base began to collapse. Explosions echoed. Fire roared. The hallway cracked. But they made it to the exit hatch, dash barely. They climbed out into the snow. Coughing, bleeding but alive. Behind them, the mountain shook as the entire underground base exploded in flames. But the truth survived in her hand. Jordan still held the cube, and inside it every file hell tried to bury. They had what they came for, but it came at a cost. News breaks around the country that night. A breaking news alert flashed. Explosion in Wyoming, possible military cover-up. Pictures of Jordan appeared again. People everywhere asked the same question. Why is she always one step ahead? And what is she going to do next? In the shadows, Hale's rage inside his bunker. Hale slammed his fist against the wall. "She survived again?" His assistant replied. "And she has the evidence." Hale's eyes turned cold. "It's time we bring the fight to her." Final scene, Jordan's choice back in a hidden room. Jordan looked at the small cube in her hands. She placed it on the desk beside her medal. Admiral Grant stood behind her. "We go public again?" he asked. Jordan didn't answer right away. Then she looked up. No more screens, no more hiding. She stood tall. "It's time I go to Washington and speak in person." A storm was coming, but this time it wasn't in the skies. It was marching straight toward the Capitol, and Commander Jordan was leading it. A quiet morning. Before history, the morning in Washington, D.C. started quietly, but by 9 a.m., thousands had already gathered near the Capitol. Veterans, journalists, college students, retired generals, even former agents in plain clothes. They held signs that read, "She protected us, now we protect her. No more shadows. Let Jordan speak news." Helicopters circled overhead. Police blocked streets, but the people kept coming, from 40 states, from every background. They weren't there to protest. They were there to protect the truth. At a safe location, Jordan prepares in a small apartment across the river. Jordan stood in front of a mirror. She wore no uniform, no medals, just the same hoodie she wore on the first day in court. Admiral Grant stood nearby, adjusting his tie. "You sure about this?" he asked. Jordan looked him in the eyes. "It's time they'll see my face. Not my rank. Just me." Ruiz, Ellis, and the hacker loaded the hard drive into a protected briefcase. "This contains everything," Ruiz said. "Every order, every document, every lie." Jordan took it. "Then let's walk into the lion's den." Flashback, promise she made years ago, when Jordan was just a young cadet. Her older sister gave her a piece of paper. It said, "Asterisk, one day, you'll face a choice. Speak when it's easy or speak when it's dangerous. If you stay silent, they win." Asterisk. Jordan folded the paper and kept it in her pocket. She had it with her now. The walk begins. Jordan and her team left the apartment. They didn't use armored cars, no private jets. They walked, and as they did, people joined them. Veterans in wheelchairs, young girls in ROTC uniforms, teachers, reporters, even a few government staffers. By the time they crossed the bridge, the crowd was nearly 10,000 strong. The government reacts inside the Capitol building. Chaos unfolded. Director Hale's allies paced nervously. "She's coming here?" one man asked. "She's not just coming," another replied. "She's bringing the world with her." Hale, watching from a secure location, clenched his fists. "She thinks this will save her." "Then let her try to speak. Let her try." He made one call. "Activate Eagle lockdown, military barriers." Rise barricades went up around the Capitol. Federal agents were posted at every door. The press was told to clear the area, but Jordan didn't stop. She walked straight through the National Mall. Her calm steps were louder than any speech. She reaches the steps. At the base of the Capitol steps, police tried to block her path. "Ma'am, you're not authorized to," but Admiral Grant stepped forward. He held up a small card. The officer blinked. "Is that?" It was an emergency clearance badge signed by a retired general 2 nights ago. The officer lowered his radio.
Let them pass.
Inside the chamber, the moment arrived, Jordan walked into the Senate hearing room. Cameras were already rolling. The room was filled with silence. Some senators stared in disbelief. Others whispered, but no one said a word. Until Jordan placed the briefcase on the table and opened it. The evidence is revealed. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She simply pulled out, one folder at a time, photos of secret facilities, documents signed by Director Hale, voice recordings, medical records of tortured prisoners, satellite images of erased missions. Each item was projected onto the screen behind her. The truth was now unignorable. Finally, speaks. Jordan stepped up to the microphone. "For years I served quietly. I followed orders. But then I saw what happened to people who asked questions." She held up a picture of one of her teammates, Agent Carter, who disappeared after refusing a command. They said he vanished. No funeral, no report, just silence. But he didn't vanish. He was erased. She looked at the camera. "This system doesn't need fixing. It needs truth, needs accountability. If I must stand alone to speak, then so be it." The crowd outside roars outside. The massive crowd watched her speech live on giant screens. When she finished, the roar of applause was louder than thunder. People cried, saluted, hugged strangers. Inside Capitol, a shift in power one by one. Key officials stood up from their seats. A former general, a senator, an ex-CIA director. "We believe her," they said. "And we demand an investigation into Director Hale." A motion was passed within the hour. Director Kenneth Hale was now officially being hunted. But Hale wasn't finished inside his hidden bunker. Hale stared at the screen. His eyes burned with fury. She turned the people, the courts, even my own agents. He turned to a locked drawer, pulled out a final key, and inserted it into a panel. "If they want fire, give them fire." He activated his last plan, Protocol Black Ice Target, Washington. Final scene, a warning as Jordan walked out of the Capitol building. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It said, "You've opened the gate. But the real war begins now." She looked up at the sky, and in the distance, a black drone hovered high above the city. A shadow moved across Washington, but it wasn't a plane. It was something worse. A drone. A signal. A silent weapon. And it had one target. The truth. The drone in the sky high above the city. The black, silent drone hovered like a bird of prey, invisible to radar, equipped with technology that didn't belong to any known agency. Didn't carry missiles. It carried something far more dangerous, a code. One that could wipe databases, shut down power grids, erase digital identities, frame the innocent. It was the heart of Project Black Ice, and Hale had just activated it. Flashback: the birth of Black Ice years ago. After Project Ashfall was nearly exposed, Hale created a new plan, one that would not kill people directly, but delete them. Imagine a world where you wake up. Your ID doesn't work, your name isn't in the system, your medical records are gone, your family doesn't receive your pension, you don't exist anymore. That was Black Ice. And now, Commander Jordan was target #1 in the Capital A. Strange shutdown as Jordan stepped out of the Senate chamber. Her phone buzzed again. No SIM found. She frowned. She checked her badge. Her digital ID chip blinked red. Inside the building, Senator Alvarez tried to open a secure door. Its access was denied. Computers shut off. Security lights turned orange. Ruiz called from inside. "Something's wrong. The power's not failing, it's being reprogrammed." Admiral Grant's eyes narrowed. "This is Black Ice," he said. "It's starting." Outside, the crowd feels it. 2 phones stopped working. Bank apps froze. Even some digital billboards glitched. turning blank or displaying random strings of code. A teenager in the crowd checked his social media and gasped, "My accounts. Deleted everything. Like I never existed." A veteran pulled out a government-issued card. Invalid credentials. Fear began to spread. Inside a secure room, Hale watches far away. Director Hale sat in front of a cold monitor. He watched Jordan's face freeze on dozens of corrupted screens. He sipped coffee slowly. "Let the world feel what it's like to lose everything in silence," he muttered. His assistant, Pale, whispered, "Sir, if this spreads too far, even your allies are replaceable," Hal interrupted. He pressed another button. Phase 2. Memory sweep. Jordan refuses to panic back in D.C. Chaos broke out. But Jordan stayed calm. She gathered her team into a side chamber in the Capitol basement. Old emergency phones still worked wired. Analog Ruiz pulled out a portable hard drive and tried to reconnect. "He's not just erasing you," she said. "It's erasing everyone who helped you, judges. Witnesses. Even me." Ellis sat in silence, holding a paper map. "No digital trail means no safety. But I kept backups. I knew this day might come." He pulled out a locked case inside. Printed files, physical IDs, real documents. Admiral Grant grinned. "You old ghost." The hackers planned their tech expert only known as. Sparrow tapped furiously on a secure laptop. "If we can't stop the drone," Sparrow said, "we can confuse it. Feed it fake data, redirect its signal." He loaded in a program. Jordan asked, "Will it work?" Sparrow replied, "It'll either save us or fry half the East Coast." Jordan didn't hesitate. "Do it." The backup broadcast using an old satellite dish hidden behind the Capitol. They launched a second emergency stream. Jordan appeared on screen, again tired but strong. "They're erasing more than my story now. They're erasing everyone who stood up." She looked directly into the lens. "But you can't erase courage. You can't delete the human spirit." She held up a paper file, one with Hale's original black eye signature. "I have your name, Hale, and now so does the world." Across the country, people fight back in California. A librarian printed thousands of copies of Jordan's documents and handed them out to high school students in Texas. An off-grid veteran reconnected old radio towers and broadcast Jordan's speech on AM waves. In New York, subway riders shared USB drives by hand. No one trusted the internet anymore, but they trusted each other. The drone begins to fallow above the city. The black drone blinked. It had received too many conflicting signals, too much noise. Virus had taken hold. The drone gelidity spun sideways, lost altitude. Finally, it crashed into the Potomac River, vanishing beneath the waves. Cheers erupted outside the Capitol. The people had won a battle, but the war was still not over. Hale's last move watching the crash. Hale's face didn't change. He opened a second file marked Leviathan. His assistant gasped. "Sir, that project was never tested," Hale replied coldly. "They brought the light. Now they'll face the dark." Final scene. A warning in the wind later that night. Jordan stood on the Capitol roof. The city lights flickered gently. She looked across the buildings. Breathing slowly, Admiral Grant stepped beside her. "Made history today," he said. Jordan replied quietly, "Not yet. The monster is still alive." Behind her, Ruiz read a final decoded message from Hale's last drive. It said, "***, you stopped the ice. But something worse is waking up." ***, Jordan looked up. Clouds gathered again, and far away. A black train moved through the mountains, unmarked, unstoppable, carrying something no one was ready for. The wind howled through the Colorado, the mountains. Snow fell like ash over the tracks, and a black military train. Without a name, cut through the silence. No crew, no windows. Just a glowing red symbol on one side. Leviatana inside that train. The final plan was waking up. Flashback, a secret buried in the ice long before Jordan wore a uniform, long before Hale rose to power. There was a rumor. File buried so deep that even presidents couldn't read it. It spoke of an experiment not just in weapons, but in people. creating soldiers who never questioned orders. Agents with no identity, no memories, men who would kill, vanish, and be forgotten. They called it the Leviathan Project Tanned Hail. He didn't just know about it. He was the one who resurrected it, back in Washington. After the drone crashed, Jordan and her team stood in silence. The drone was gone. The people had spoken, but something felt wrong. Admiral Grant stared at a blinking light on his satellite. Tracker.Ruiz frowned. That's not a drone signal. Hacker Sparrow zoomed in. It's a moving base. Coming from Colorado. Heavy, fast, encrypted, military grade. Jordan's face turned pale. She whispered just 2 words. Leviathan survived. What is Leviathan? Ruiz opened a hidden file, one even Jordan hadn't seen before. Inside were images of tall men with shaved heads, blank eyes. Serial numbers burned into their skin. No names, just numbers. LO 01, LO 02, LO 03. They're not soldiers, Ruiz said. They're reprogrammed humans. They erased their memories, their past, their emotions, and turned them into tools. Ellis, the former janitor and spy, added, I saw one once. Took 4 bullets and didn't blink. The train carries them far away, inside the Leviathan train. The lights turned red, cold steam hissed from the walls. A voice echoed inside. Unit LO19, awake. Unit LO22, prepare. Mission, retrieve, or destroy Maya Jordan. The eyes of the soldiers opened. Lifeless, programmed, dead but walking. The plan to stop it back in Washington. Jordan looked at the map. This train isn't just carrying people, she said. It's carrying the last virus, something Hela called Protocol Storm. Sparrow nodded. A blackout weapon. Once it reaches a city, it can fry everything. Comes power, even planes in the sky. Admiral Grant clenched his fist. They're not here to win. They're here to erase the board. They need one last team. Jordan made the hardest call of her life. She reached out to General Mora, her old rival, a man who once tried to court-martial her. He answered coldly. You want my help now? I don't want it, Jordan replied. The country does. A long silence. Then Mora spoke. I'll give you one team, my best. But if this fails, you're on your own. Jordan smiled. That's more than I've ever had. Preparing for the final confrontation in an old hangar in Kansas, the team assembled. Jordan, Admiral Grant, Ruiz, Sparrow, Ellis, Mora's elite squad. Ghost Unit 6, they loaded EMP grenades, thermal blockers, flash data injectors. Ruiz handed Jordan a small red chip. This will shut down any Leviathan unit if you get close enough to touch them. Jordan stared at the chip. Then I'll get close. Flashback, the file Jordan was never meant to seat 10 years ago. Jordan found a file by accident. It showed a child, a boy who disappeared during a military relocation. His name had been erased, but his eyes were familiar. She had seen those. Same eyes in a prison cell in Turkey, in a village in Myanmar, and now in the Leviathan image files. Hale hadn't just built soldiers, he had stolen children and turned them into ghosts. That was the day she swore, if I ever find them again, I'll bring them home or die trying. The train enters the plains, the Leviathan train moved. Across the open lands, black smoke. No conductor, only one destination. Washington, D.C. inside. The final units activated. Unit LO01 stood taller than the others. He spoke for the first time. Target, Jordan. Status, enemy of order. Outcome, terminate. Jordan faces the train just before sunrise. He found the train. It was parked on a dead railway surrounded by fog too. Quiet, Jordan and Ghost Unit 6 approached slowly. Then suddenly movement. Leviathan units stepped out of the train. 1. Silent, soulless, Sparrow whispered. There's more than we thought. Maybe 50. Jordan tightened her gloves. Then we give them a reason to remember. The battle begins. Explosions lit the sky. EMP pulses fired. Flash drives were slammed into helmets. Some Leviathan soldiers fell. Some twitched, but others kept moving faster, stronger. Admiral Grant tackled one and injected a shutdown. Chip into its neck, it froze mid-punch. Ruiz screamed as another charged at her. Ella stepped in and took it down with a shock baton, and Jordan. She faced Unit L001, their eyes locked. For a second, Jordan saw something. A flicker, a memory, a child, crying, locked in a room. She stepped forward. "I know who you are," she said. The unit froze. "You're not a weapon. You're a survivor." A glitch in the ghost, the unit raised his fist, then slowly lowered it. A tear rolled down his cheek, behind him. Other units paused too. Sparrow shouted, "She's breaking the code. They're remembering." Jordan took another step. "You were stolen, but you're still human." The units dropped their weapons. Hale's voice returned suddenly. A voice echoed from inside the train. "Hale, you can't save them. You can't stop me." Then a countdown began. Self-destruct, 60 seconds. He was going to bury them all. Jordan's final sprint, she raced into the train. Smoke, sparks, screaming countdowns. She found the core wired and glowing. She took Ruiz's chip and slammed it into the main console. "Override, Commander Maya Jordan," she whispered. "Let this end." A final beep and then silence. The train powered down. No explosion, no fire, just stillness. Final scene, a new dawn, hours later. As the sun rose, survivors gathered by the wreck. Leviathan units sat in blankets, confused but free. Jordan stood among them, exhausted. "General." Mora arrived and saluted her. "You were right," he said. She nodded. Truth was never the enemy. Fear was. The world had changed. The Leviathan project was exposed. Black. Ice was destroyed. But the war wasn't over yet. Because the man behind it all, Director Kenneth Hale, was still free. And Commander Jordan knew. Until he stood trial, justice wasn't real. Flashback. A promise in the dark years ago. Jordan sat beside her dying mother, who whispered, "Never let the powerful rewrite truth. Even if your voice shakes, speak. Even if they try to erase you, stand." That night, Jordan made a silent promise. One day, the truth will sit in the courtroom, and lies will stand in chains. News spreads around the world. Every major news channel broadcasts the same image, Commander. Maya Jordan, walking beside a Leviathan, soldier now free, now human. People flooded the streets in support. "We believe her." Lay in public. Truth on trial. Leaders from other nations sent messages. "We want answers too." The people had spoken. Now it was the government's turn. Washington, the trial is set inside the Supreme Federal Courthouse. Security was tighter than ever. Snipers watched rooftops. Dogs sniffed for bombs. And yet something felt different this time. The people weren't angry. They were hopeful. They weren't afraid of Hale. They were finally ready to face him. Hale is captured after the Leviathan failure. Hale tried to flee. He booked a private plane under a fake name. But Sparrow had already hacked the system. As Hale walked toward the jet, federal agents surrounded him. "Kenneth Hale, you are under arrest for high treason, human experimentation. And war crimes?" He said nothing, only smirked. "It took you long enough." Inside the courtroom, Jordan sat at the witness table, calm and focused. Hale entered in cuffs, wearing a black suit, still proud. He looked around the courtroom and said to the judge, "Let's skip the drama. I know how this ends." The judge replied, "That's the first thing you've ever said that's true." The first witness, Dr. Lena Ruiz, stepped forward. Holding a tablet with over 200 files, she looked Hale in the eye. "You erased names, lives, and families. You thought deleting data would delete pain." She played a short recording. Hale's voice filled the courtroom. "Erase the village. Shh. Make sure no one remembers the girl." Gasps filled the room. The second witness, Elisella, stepped up slowly, carrying the mop handle he always kept. "I worked in your buildings," he said to Hale. "I cleaned your floors. I emptied your trash. and I saw more truth there than you ever told the world. He pulled out a file Hale once threw away, a memo that read, "Eliminate the commander before she testifies." The courtroom fell silent. The turning point. Jordan's testimony. Then it was Jordan's turn. She walked to the stand wearing the same hoodie from day one. No medals. No uniform. Just her. She held the small red notebook her sister once gave her. She opened it. "I speak not just for myself," she said, "but for the names you buried." She held up a printed photo. "This was Agent Carter. You said he vanished." "He didn't. You sent him to Leviathan, found his body in the snow. He still had his badge in his hand." Jordan's voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "You built a system of silence. But today, silence loses." Helly tries to fight back. Hell stood up suddenly. "I protected this country. I did what weak men wouldn't." The judge banged the gavel. "Sit down." But Hale shouted louder, "You can't build a nation without shadows. You all knew. Let me do it." Then he turned to the public gallery. "And you think she's a hero? She was one of us. She followed orders until it hurt her personally." Jordan stood up calmly. "And I stopped. That's what makes me different." The verdict after 3 days of testimony, the jury returned. The courtroom held its breath. The judge read the verdict. "Kenneth Hale, you were found guilty on all counts." People in the courtroom clapped. Some cried. Some just closed their eyes in relief. Hale said nothing. He didn't yell. He just looked at Jordan. For the first time, he looked afraid. Outside the courtroom, as Jordan walked out, the crowd erupted in cheers. Veterans saluted her. A little girl ran up and hugged her waist. "You were brave," the girl whispered. Jordan knelt down. "So were you. You stood with the truth." Admiral Grant smiled proudly. Ruiz wiped a tear. Ellis just said, "Told you they'd believe you in the end." Final scene, a letter from the past. That night, Jordan returned home. She opened her locker and found something she hadn't seen in years. A letter written by her old commander before he died. "If the day comes that truth needs a voice, I hope you speak louder than any of us ever dared." Jordan smiled softly. She looked out the window toward the city lights. The war was over, but the truth would live forever. The war was over. The courtroom was quiet now. The truth had been spoken. But Commander Maya Jordan didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that lives deep inside your bones. After carrying a burden no one else could see, a city resting at last, Washington. D.C. had never looked this peaceful. The streets were calm. Flags waved in the wind. News headlines no longer screamed. They simply read, "Hale guilty. Leviathan program shut down." But Jordan didn't feel free, not yet. Flashback her first medallion years ago, when she was just a junior officer. Jordan received her first medal for courage, but when they handed it to her, she noticed something odd. There was no name on it, just a serial number. She asked why. An older officer pulled her, sighed and said, "That's how it works. You do the job. But the story belongs to someone else." That day, she made a silent promise. "If I ever earn another medal, I want it to have my name." A quiet visit to the cemetery 2 days after the trial, Jordan stood alone in Arlington. National Cemetery. She wore her HOODIE. No cameras, no guards, just rows of graves. In memory, she stopped at a plain headstone that read, "Agent Carter." No date, no rank, no words. She placed a folded flag on the ground. "They forgot you," she whispered, "but I didn't." Then she knelt and prayed not for victory, but for peace. Back at the Pentagon, an unexpected call in a high-security room. Admiral Grant met with the Secretary of Defense. "We owe her more than a headline," the Secretary said. Grant agreed. She didn't just save secrets. She saved people. The Secretary opened a file and gave her what they tried to take. An invitation arrives that evening. Jordan received a letter. Asterisk, asterisk, You are hereby invited to attend a private ceremony at Arlington Hall. Please wear your service uniform. We have something to return to you." Jordan stared at the paper for a long time. Then, she opened her locker, and for the first time in years, she put on her uniform. The ceremony inside Arlington Hall. Only a few people gathered. Admiral Grant, Dr. Ruiz, Ellis, Sparrow Ghost. Unit 6 and 24 survivors from the Leviathan program. No reporters, no applause, just truth. The secretary stepped forward, spoke gently. "Some medals are earned through orders, others through disobedience. Today we honor a woman who followed her conscience when others followed fear." He turned to Jordan. "They tried to erase your name, but this one belongs only to you." He handed her a medal. The ribbon was deep navy blue, the center shined gold, and this time it had her name engraved on the back. Commander Maya Jordan, for truth beyond duty. Tears in the room, Admiral Grant saluted her. Dr. Ruiz hugged her tight. Sparrow handed her a USB drive. "It's a clean slate," he said. "No backdoors. Just your story, the real one." Ellis handed her a notebook just like the red one she always carried. "I thought you'd want a new one," he said. Jordan smiled, not to erase the past, just to start a new chapter. Outside, a different world. As she walked outside into the evening light, a small girl and her mother approached. The girl wore a hoodie, just like Jordan's. She looked up shyly. "Are you the captain from the TV?" Jordan knelt down. "I was once, but today I'm just Maya." The little girl handed her a paper drawing. It showed a woman standing tall, holding a medal, surrounded by stars above it. The girl had written in shaky letters, "You are my hero." Jordan held back tears, "And you are my future." One final visit to her sister's grave that night. Jordan visited her sister's grave for the first time in years. She wore the medal around her neck. She sat on the ground, lit a small candle, and opened her sister's last letter. Then she whispered, "I spoke when it was dangerous. I stood when they told me to sit, and I survived when they tried to erase me." She placed the medal gently on the grave for a moment. "This belongs to both of us." Then she put it back on, and walked into the dark with her head high. Final scene, a new day weeks later. Jordan returned to the same courtroom this time. She wasn't a defendant. She was a guest speaker. She stood in front of a new generation of cadets, young, wide-eyed. Full of questions, she said, just one thing. "The uniform doesn't make you brave. The truth does." And for the first time, Jordan smiled freely.